I'm sorry, y'all. YouTube didn't let me post for 2 weeks straight, so now I'm gonna be reviewing literally everybody's videos. How about that? Let's get it, let's go. I love that I can genuinely feel the passion and talent when you make this. I can hear it in the voice acting, I can hear it in the dialogue. And the only issue here I see is that you're just limited by your resources, which isn't entirely your fault. But I don't review people over what they have, I review them over their potential. If you're filming on an iPhone, what you can do is that you can tilt the camera to be in the lower angle, and if I were you, I would recommend buying a macro lens off of Amazon so you can get closer to your figures as well. But for the video in and of itself, if there's anything I would change is that I would just work on the pacing, since the ending just felt a little bit too sudden. I would just let the video have more time to breathe, and that's basically it. As a whole, I see this video and I'm saying it deserves a 7.5 out of 10. You did the best with what you could, but to make things move more fluently and smoother, you should have added even more stuff to the platform to stick it together, so it's easier to move figures without ruining the set. This video right here is why I review people over their potential, because this video is literally 23 minutes long. Let's begin with what's amazing in this video, because I promise you guys there's a lot of amazing stuff in this video. I usually tell people to pace their video like a song because they're not long enough to be treated as a movie, right? But this video is long enough to give it 3-act pacing, and I'll say this video did it perfectly. There was an origin in the beginning of this video, but it didn't feel too long or too short, and the video just went along very smoothly. Editing was amazing, especially for the montage in the beginning of the video, and also the beginning of the video has some of the best set design I've seen in a fat minute. So yeah, basically the video as a whole had a very whimsical, strong structure, and this video generally reminds me of like those 10, 9, 8, 11-year-old videos that are like long Lego movie videos on YouTube. Maybe it's just me, but I just don't see people making videos like that anymore. If there's anything I would work on in this video is that the secondary villain, like not the main villain, I feel like he could have had a different ending. I feel like instead of having him die, he could have learned from the years and then helped out the good guys to defeat the main bad guy. He would have tied the story together better. That's my only main critique about this video. But that's like story-wise, but I would fix visually though is that I would buy a macro lens off of Amazon so you can get closer to your figures at the same time without having to sacrifice resolution by zooming in the camera. You guys need to spend your own time to watch this video. It's generally worth that. 9.5 out of 10. Alright, I like the energy you put onto the figures fighting, but the issue is that the camera did not match that at all. The camera was way too stable, and I've seen a lot of people that go out of their way to have the camera move side to side. It could have been in small ways, but it definitely helps a lot to keep the energy going. That way, any small punch that happens just feels 1,000 times way stronger. Especially when the video began or when Homelander first shot Omni-Man, having the camera have some impact on it definitely would have made the video feel even stronger. Just like the first person I reviewed today, I feel like you would really benefit from having a macro lens. Especially when you get the close-ups, having a very in-depth field, especially for a really cheap price, definitely worth the impact. Trust me, it's worth investing on this stuff. Your biggest weakness right now is yourself, but that's not entirely a bad thing. And I say that because that means you can fix it whenever you wish. I see so much potential in what you do, and I'll gladly give you a higher review later. But for now, this is 7 out of 10. It's honestly still really solid though. 20 racks on me. There's some good things in this video and there's some bad things in this video that I would change. First off, I really like the super subtle motion blur that happens every now and then. It looks really good. But I see an issue that happens a lot in your video, which is instead of masking what you don't want in the frame, you should have 2 frames, one with the character and one without it, and then only have the character and his shadow in the frame after you're done masking. Then have that overlaying on the photo without the character at all. When you do the thing that just takes off the thing that's holding onto the stuff, especially when something's being thrown or a character is flying, it completely breaks the illusion because you can tell exactly where you're masking. Doing the exact opposite actually gives a better result, and once I learned how to do that like years, and I mean years ago, I never went back. And lighting wise, it is decent, but it can still be improved on. I recommend adding the lighting a little bit closer to the walls, so basically the further corners from the set. And I've noticed it just overall lights everything better. And every now and then it just feels like the shadows are too extreme, and what I did, especially when it didn't have enough lighting, is that I would just use white pieces of paper, and the reflection of it actually makes the shadows a little bit lighter, so the photo becomes less intense. But the final part of that is just more of an option, since if you like doing that stylistically, I cannot stop you from doing that. Also, it sounds like you're recording from a different device to get the audio. I recommend just trying to add the audio within. You can probably search up how to do that. However, I really like how good the practical effects look like, and I also like the speed of the animation as a whole. It always feels very punchy. And instead of using blue base plates, I definitely recommend using blue pieces of paper. That's all I have to say for this video, but I definitely see a lot of things you can improve on, so because of that, this is 6.5 out of 10. Okay, I have a lot of things I want to say about this video. First off, I really like the set design and the voice acting, but the lighting is definitely the biggest weakness here. There is a difference between dim lighting and under lighting. Dim lighting is just filming something intentionally being dark, but under lighting is just when there's not enough light, and I really feel like this video needed more light or just better care of where the light was. For example, some characters were lit well, however, camera angle later, they just were very underlit. What I do is I just change the lighting enough that it helps out the character, but not enough that it feels like it's completely different lighting. I do this in every single video, and I've never heard anyone say anything about my lighting changing, so I know for sure this works. The effects are also really good, but if there's anything you should change is that the ending just felt a little bit too fast. Just like the video in this review before that had the same issue. Let the video have like a second or two of more breathing room. But this doesn't change the fact that when their lighting is good, it actually is really good. And with all the effects done in this video. But scratch what I said about lighting being the biggest issue here, is probably the framing. The animation in and of itself is good, but the camera angles are just not fitting what's going on. I believe it happened like once, 2, 3 times where a character just does not have enough headroom and they borderline or just begin clipping above. You guys probably already get the point on what I'm saying, but just get a macro lens. You can buy a cheap one off of Amazon. It's gonna save you so much time and make things so much better. But for now, this is a solid 8.4 out of 10. It's at a point where I can call out the flaws, but it's still so obvious that this was made very well in the same time. Luckily, this video doesn't have any of the camera angle issues. The framing and the camera work is done really well, and it really fits the video here. Everything visually is straightforward, and also the lighting is really good. The only thing I would work on is the easing in and out. Especially with the sword movements, it just does not feel like it's going fast enough, and it does not go with enough range. Easing in and out will help your impacts feel just way smoother. Well, which is great because it seems like that's the only issue in this video. Also, don't forget that easing in and out can also be added to walking and running, which is really useful when you want a character to just feel really fast and then really slow, which adds to the impact, which is something you really need because you have some really nice moves in this video. However, the animation is really necessary for this kind of video. Same thing with the Homelander and Omni-Man one, because, well, it's a fighting video. Same way, if someone sends me a video that's very comedy or plot heavy, I'm gonna be reviewing them more for that. But since this is a fighting video, I'm gonna be reviewing you more on the animation side of it. And with the easing in and out issues, it really becomes lackluster in some parts. And like I said, your moves are good, but they just don't have the power that they need, which makes you kind of the polar opposite of the Homelander and Omni-Man video, where that video had the perfect moves and the speed for all that. The camera was just not in the same pace. But for this video, the camera is in right pace, but your animation is just not on the pace of the camera. So balancing out your really good moves with the very lackluster ones, I have to give this video a 7 out of 10.
What you say? That you only meant well, but
Your video is really interesting, but for some odd reasons. Story-wise, in and of itself, it's pretty basic and I would say mediocre. However, you showed why movies really care about the director, because even though you had a very plain, boring story, let's be honest, you made it really fun and enjoyable. You gave the droids a very emotionless voice, and at the same time, you were contrasting that with very energetic movements, which made it so funny. I honestly like what you did with the camera, however, it just felt like you were doing it too much in parts that were just not necessary. But when you did the camera panning around perfectly, was when it actually was needed, and when you did need it, it actually looked really good. It's just that when you use it for every shot, it just begins to lose its value. That begins to lose its contrast. And contrast is not just a visual thing, it could also be an editing thing. When there's something really quiet and then there's something that's normal volume, it feels way louder, the same way as if it was normal volume and then really loud. The same effect happens with editing. If you use something too much, it begins to just feel gray, like if it doesn't really add anything to the video. Also, I love that your emotionless voice acting usually is the opposite for a video, but just like I said about contrast, the super energetic stuff that's going on that's really fun comedically contrasts with your very emotionless speaking, or at least the same speaking used again and again. Again, this doesn't usually work for other people, but the way you directed this all together just made it work really well. These are the kind of videos I usually skip, but the way you just did it just made it work, and I just love that. Yeah, sorry for repeating myself a lot, but I need you guys to watch this video so you guys know exactly what I mean. This video could have completely been bad, but he saved it with his own style, and I just love that. Gladly giving this video a 9 out of 10. Alright, this is why I tell people to film on Stop Motion Studio app with manual settings on, because it seems like you're filming this throughout either different days or you're just having some gaps in between of not doing something, because the temperature of the camera just changes a lot, so the blues and the greens, they always switch around. You need to have things set, that way if you stop filming for whatever reason, you can always come back and it always looks like nothing happened. There's parts of my videos where like in between of a sequence I just couldn't film for like a day or two and you just would not notice. And this could easily be applied to this video for free. It costs zero money to be ready and prepare. Also, I have to mention that this video is suffering from the camera's too high syndrome. If you're using an iPhone or an iPad, you can switch the angle of the phone or iPad to get the camera closer, lower. And like the advice I give to many people, just get a macro lens. If it's because you don't have a background, then getting a piece of paper is the best thing you can do. This effect doesn't always hurt a video, but for a video that's action-packed and you just kind of need to see everything from a better angle, it really is necessary to have the camera straight. Also, make sure that the motion blur you add with the bricks is enough for the speed they're going. If you move too slow and you add too much, it just removes the effect. So make sure that the more brick pieces that they skip over, more of the effect you add, and the less is skipped, the less you add. The effect is cool, don't get me wrong, but just like I mentioned previously before, the contrast is the thing that really matters. And the blending of bricks also makes it out to something that needs easing in and out, so you gotta watch out for that. 6 out of 10. There was a lot of potential in this video, but you were just getting in your own way.
Oh yeah, don't ask me where I'm at, you know what I'm saying? You ain't getting this low, you know what I mean? You was not getting this low, you know what I mean? Bitch, I'm a heavy, you heard me? You know what I'm saying?
I love that you realized you didn't have enough resources, so you instead embraced what you got, and then you use an actual part of your home so you can have an even wider shots. That way you made something that would have hurt your video into something that makes your video better, and I love when I see that. The best advice I can give you though is, since the animation is good and all, the only thing that you actually need to work on is keeping everything stable, and since you're on a carpet, it's different than other people. So what I would do, I would get some kind of thick tape and add it to the corners while you animate. I mean the corners of the base plates, of course. The editing and the sound effects were also done really well, and same with the camera work. Honestly, this is the gold standard if you don't have enough resources. If you guys don't have enough resources at home, I would watch this video and just take notes. Crazy how you actually made your carpet feel like war with the editing, the camera work, everything you did together. This is why directing matters a lot. A lot of people would find this controversial, but I still say this is an 8 out of 10. In the beginning, I was gonna give this video a bad review, but I just let things happen and eventually it just got better and better. I definitely knew all the audio stuff was done on purpose, especially when all the guys got ran over. And in that moment, it basically sounded like you tried to invent a new sound, and I low-key enjoyed that a lot. The voice acting was good and energetic, but I would just work on the lighting on this video. It wasn't consistent, and then there was issues with the lighting where it seems like the lamp or just lighting you were using as a whole did not match the shutter speed of the camera, so it just gave you that black bar effect. And when your lighting does it to you, you're just better off not using that lighting as a whole. I would immediately buy something different to hold on to my lighting. Since that's not really something you can fix, I was really just stuck with the lighting. It was a funny video, but just work on the visuals. And by that, I also mean by stop repeating the same frames when someone's speaking and have new ones in it. Otherwise, it just feels like you're just looking at a still photo, which is a disservice to the audience. So yeah, 6.2 out of 10. I don't think I've seen someone do the clay thing you did for this video, especially for the mask. You should have done the same thing though with the blood, since it really doesn't feel as impactful when it's like drawn on. And I might be wrong, but I believe drawing on your figures could remove the ink of the print as time goes, so I would just watch out for that. But yeah, especially for the majority of this video, I noticed that the camera was just way too low. Lift it up a bit in the angle so we can see the characters better, and then you should be set to go. I would also add more of a pushback or a knockback every time someone's punched, especially because it happens a lot and sometimes a character just stays frozen like invincible. So whatever was done just does not feel impactful at all. It doesn't even have to be that crazy of a work. It could just be a slight pushback on the torso with the head turning a bit, and that's really all you need. In other videos, it wouldn't damage your score too much for these things, but since it is very necessary for what's going on in this video, it really is more necessary to get these things right. So for now, this is a 6.5 out of 10. And also for the framing, I feel like I was exaggerating it. It was mainly just in the beginning, and later on, you just kept on improving it.
Fear not, ma'am. I am Super Netspend, here to rescue you from your troubles.
This was a good recreation of the scene. The animation was really good, and I like how you just made everything match with the audio and such. But there are some issues here that I feel like you can improve on, which are really small, which is good in the same time. This one's really minor, but just make sure the camera's a little bit more zoomed out, because sometimes it just feels a little bit too tight. And you should try to experiment more with your lighting, since otherwise everything more or less feels like they're in the same place. And here's a fun fact that a lot of you guys can actually learn from, which is look at how people do movie recreations and try to add that kind of pacing to your videos and see how it looks, just to experiment. This could help you guys direct and write stories better, especially if you guys want to do longer form videos like the cheat code. Yeah, but nonetheless, this is a solid video. 8.8 out of 10. Something cool in this video definitely was the gun flip. You know, when the ARC trooper switched the hands with the gun? Yeah, but regardless of that, the animation is really good in this video. Also, it's pretty dope that you got a purple background instead of a blue one, because I've noticed a lot of people just use the blue one, even myself. And you guys already know how I feel about when people try to do something that's different. But what this video could work on more is the sound effect. Either you could have gone the route where you have music overlapping everything with the same sound effect you have right now, or you could have gone this way you were more or less doing right now, which was to add more music, but then you would have to add more sound effects for the characters. Like when the stormtrooper was nervous and shaking his gun, there could have been a sound effect for that. If you're gonna add subtle animation, there's a point where you might as well add the subtle sound effects as well. But yeah, still a really solid video here, so 9 out of 10. Alright, this brick film shows exactly how you should be pacing a video if it's one of your episodes for a series. It never feels like it's taking too long, and it also knows where to end. It doesn't last for too long, and it doesn't last for too little. I know I've said stuff to make a video pace like a song, but when it's at this length, at 12 minutes, this is the point where you have to pace it like a real episode, and I'm glad you did that. The fight scenes, especially in the middle of the video, were very well done, except that some of them just felt a little bit too slow. And I would just work on the framing to be a little bit lower, since a lot of the times, characters are just in the very lowest part. It's not all the time, but it's definitely noticeable when it happens. frames. And for the first part of the video, like the first third, a lot of the dialogue just happened and the camera just felt emotionless. I'm glad he gave the camera something more to do in the other parts of the video, but however in the beginning it just really stayed on the same parts with the same repeating frames. Be careful when you do something like that in the beginning of the video, because people notice usually if a video is going to be bad or good within the first 10 seconds of someone watching a video, so then they could click off and not actually watch the golden parts of this video, which are later on. So when you begin a video, you should always try to give it more energy. That way people stay longer in your video. And also something that's also not helping you out is that even though you were keeping the still frames in the intro and it was getting better later on in the video, there was still some still frames that lasted way too long in the later on parts of the video. And I believe I mentioned this in the previous long form review I did before I got some strikes, but a video should never be longer than it has to be. And then when you have the still frames and all that, there's not enough content to make up for the duration of what's happening. That's really the biggest thing here that's lowering your points. You could keep everything in the same quality, but if you just have that kind of issue, there's really not much I can tell you, which is why for this I'm giving you a 5.5 out of 10. It could have easily been something like a 7 out of 10 or 7.5, but the super weak pacing in this episode is what's hurting you the most. For the video itself, you have a really good structure here. The pacing's all well done. Everything goes together smoothly. There's not any part I would remove and there's no part I would try to add. And you're still pretty new to making stop motion, so this is a great thing. But what I would work on more is just the things you would need to practice, which is things like framing and just fighting as a whole. The animation will get better by time, and like other people, I've mentioned to get a macro lens because I can see that you're zooming in a lot. And keeping the camera zoomed in just makes everything feel way more stage-like in a way that just removes part of the life in the video. But luckily, that's an easy thing to fix over time. And if you're not going to be getting closer to your figures and you want to stay with the camera as it is, I recommend trying to get yourself to make bigger sets. That way, instead of compromising, you instead embrace what you have. Like, there will have been some videos in this review that do just that, and that keeps their points higher. And I believe you have the stuff already that can help you do that, since your issues are just more on needing to practice more, rather than not being talented into making brick films, because you clearly have the talent to do so. Everything is structured perfectly. So yeah, basically just keep on practicing your animation and you should be set to go. But story-wise, if there's anything I would do is that maybe I would add some twist in between, since once you get too good at something, that's when you have to begin to mix things up again. Still a really solid video. I would give you a 7.8 out of 10. I would give it higher, but you just need to try to make stuff less predictable. Alright, for this video I did way more than enough people, so I think we're set for now. I hope I got everyone I promised to get in this video. Hopefully I don't get terminated or something like that, since I'm known to getting a lot of strikes and I've been terminated before. But either way, like and subscribe, especially share, and see you guys next time.